This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Hello and welcome to the Research Talks podcast from Stockbox with Alan Green. Hello Alan, how are you this Friday?
Hello, Mark. I'm very well, thanks. Sitting here, it's chucking it down with rain in Seaford, unlike previous weeks, but can't complain. The garden needs it, the plants need it. So, what will happen? Of course, we'll get a few days of rain, then the sun will come out, and everything will go mental. So, we'll be wielding lawn mowers, hedge cutters, and shears simultaneously to try and keep it all at bay.
Indeed. Good. Yes, there is a reason why the UK is so green. We've got, it's fairly sunny here today, actually, so it should be a nice day. And tonight I'm going to my first concert in a long time. It's a COVID-secure concert. It's part of a government testing sort of scheme, so you've got to do certain things. But ultimately, it is the Hague Orchestra, and I think it's going to be a pretty cool evening.
That sounds great, yeah. A full orchestra live is quite something to behold. It really is.
Yeah.
It's. Yeah. So who's your favourite classical composer?
Oh, classical composer. That's a good question. I do like a bit of Bach, I must admit. Yeah, I do like a bit of Bach. Who can't be? Go on.
I think Mozart is out there by himself. I think he's an absolute genius, and he was the rock star of his day. He obviously. Tortured by syphilis and died early or whatever. But, he was just musical genius. And there was so much jealousy, amongst his rival composers at the time, because this guy was so insanely talented. But,
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. Before we do that, we have to do some work.
We do. Yes, that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. And today you're going to be talking to us about ECR, who've had some sort of news recently, and also Kavango, who have released news just this morning, actually. So you're going to kick us off with ECR. Is that right? Bring us up to speed on what's going on.
Yep, going to start with ECR and then we'll move on to Kavango, and I'll do a quick summary of the Kavango projects, which, of course, we have covered recently, and then go on to discuss the latest news today from the Kalahari Copper Belt. But firstly, ECR Minerals. Of course, we have spoken about ECR on numerous occasions. So ECR have a series of projects. Just a bit of data on the company. Currently got a market capitalization of just over 18 million. Shares trading at 1.87p. They've traded as high as 4.4p on the year and as low as 0.65p. So we know, of course, through recent fundraisings, the company is well funded. There was a fundraise recently, which resulted in it was a raising of 2 million through the broker, which Craig decided to get away. He was offered the money and decided to get the placing away, even though it was to an extent unpopular with private retail investors, because they weren't involved. And Craig actually discussed that in an interview with me, the reasons why. And I think if there is a next time, which I don't think there will be, because the company's got nearly 6 million quid in the bank now, so they won't need money for some time to come. So the company's has flagship gold exploration projects in the Victoria goldfields in Australia, which of course are well documented on this podcast. Suffice to say, of course, we have ECR Minerals, Power Metal Resources, and the joint venture with Red Rock Australasia, Fosterville South, and numerous other companies operating in this area. Plus, of course, we have producing gold mines. The Fosterville gold mine, owned by Kirkland Lake Gold, is one of the most profitable gold mines in the world, never mind Australia, and is producing at a rate of knots. But there are some changes there, which I'll go into, which have a significance for ECR Minerals. So with the funding ECR now has, it recently purchased its own drill rig, and of course, when mining companies employ drill rig contractors, given where we are in this what is ostensibly a commodity super cycle, or at the start of a commodity super cycle, the contractors are booked up a long way in advance. So having their own rig and also their own central headquarters in the middle of the Victoria Goldfields region in Australia, which is and Bendigo is more or less smack bang in the centre of that region, so very well placed strategically. They of course have their own operation there, they're developing their own lab and resources there, so they can handle the whole thing themselves. Nonetheless, given the speed of activity which is now taking place, they have hired drilling contractors to undertake work at their second project at QuasiGold, which I'll go into shortly. But firstly, the developments at the Bayliston Gold Project, which consist of a series of prospects: the Black Cat prospect, the Blue Moon prospect, the Red and Yellow Moon prospect, and also, of course, HR3, Historic Reserve 3, which is where the current drilling activity is underway. So the company are at a point now where they have completed extensive drilling at Bayliston. They have assay results from the first drill core, which revealed visible gold. But the company said, or Greg Brown said, that soil sampling from the HR3 area has identified very high gold grades in soils, which further supports the geological modelling and drill targeting. And what we're seeing here is what's referred to in geological terms as a central anticline, which is a huge underground feature, which the drilling and the soil sampling are identifying, and these works are supporting the modelling that the company has undertaken. Now, that, of course, is overseen by the head geologist, Adam Jones, and, of course, Dr. Rodney Boucher, who's been working with ECR for many years. So the geologists, the geo team, have put together this model, and the drilling work to date and the soil sampling is supporting that development. So this obviously is very encouraging, and just bearing in mind, I think Craig in the past has been perceived by people who've seen him on interviews as not negative, but he plays his cards very close to his chest. But Craig has a very clear system that he works to. Historically, he has a great track record of success in finding and bringing gold assets into production. He discovered a 5 million JORC resource asset at Pakrat in Tajikistan with the company which is now known as China Dun First Gold. Prior to that, worked at Gulf International Minerals, engaging gold mine production, and before that, Nelson Gold. So he's got a system he works to. So this anticline that they've discovered at Bayliston is important for a number of reasons. I mentioned Fosterville. Now, the Fosterville gold mine is some 30 to 40 kilometers away from HR3, but the company that owns the Fosterville mine, Kirkland Gold, have three key assets, and the Fosterville mine is the key asset. Now, they announced last week first quarter production. The Fosterville mine produced 108,679 ounces of gold in quarter one of this year. Bear in mind, last year its total gold production was 640,000 ounces, which is a huge number, 619,000 ounces in 2019. So that's quite a reduction. They have said that it will be second quarter weighted, so we may see some recovery towards that. But the company said, and this is Kirkland Gold, the change from both prior periods reflected a lower grade average, consistent with the company's previously stated plan to reduce production by increasing mining activities in other lower grade areas of the mine. They also, during the quarter, spent 1.6 million on land acquisition. So there is a clear case here. Kirkland are looking to expand the Fosterville mine operations, and I was talking talking about this with ECR the other day, and they basically said that their plan is to develop this asset because, given the proximity of it to the Fosterville mine, this would be something that would be of great interest to Kirkland Lake Gold. So clearly, this is the plan behind developing Bayliston HR3. Also, of course, in the Bayliston region, we have the Black Cat project. This is immediately south of an area applied for by Newmont Mining, and this is a prospect that was sampled in 2019. So the entire region, it's a huge region. HR3 is just one very small part of this, but the progress to date is really exciting. And I think given the possible developments that could take place with Kirkland Lake Gold at some point in the future, that for me, is a very exciting prospect. So that's Bayliston dealt with. We then come to QuasiGold, and of course QuasiGold is it's to the south of Bendigo and just to the north of Ballarat. And the QuasiGold Project exploration was undertaken in 2009, and some very substantial nuggets were sort of discovered not too far into the ground from RC drilling. They drilled 9 holes, and the best samples that came out were 44 grams per ton and 80 grams per ton. And this nuggety mineralization was a feature that ran across the area. Within QuasiGold, you have a geological anomaly called the Dimmock's Main Shale, and this is it's a hard rock source of alluvial and deep lead gold, and this feature runs basically north to south. It runs south through Ballarat, where the producing Ballarat gold mine is, and there is estimated to be some 2.5 million ounces of gold in this QuasiGold Berry system, and up to 11 million ounces across the Ballarat area as a whole. So in order to speed things up, given the funding the company now have, they have engaged a contractor to undertake a series or drill a series of holes, 10 holes from drill sites located across the QuasiGold license. And the drill sites for the new program are some 2 kilometers south along the Dimmock's Main Shale trend from those used in the previous drilling program in 2019. And as I said, the assays produced from that were substantial. So we're expecting to get some news from that very shortly. So that those two together are extremely exciting. We also know that the outer Ballarat license, which is below the QuasiGold license, is that license has been applied for by a number of companies, including ECR and also including the Royal Red Rock Australia, the joint venture between Red Rock Resources and Power Metal Resources. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome there. So you've got 2 very strong cases there. We then have which is more of a blue sky project, the Tambo license, and of course the Tambo is in eastern Victoria, and entails the historic Swifts Creek, Omeo, and Haunted Stream assets, which have recorded gold production historically of 205,000 ounces and 25,000 ounces respectively. It's an alluvial gold system here, and this was flagged up. The licenses were applied for and are, I think, due to be confirmed at any time by the company. And obviously, once those licenses are confirmed, we'll see some work undertaken in those license areas within the coming months. This is a particular interest to one of the geologists working for ECR, Dr. Rodney Boucher. He grew up in Bruthen, nearby, and his third-year thesis was a survey of the Tambo region, and he believes there is an awful lot underground there, and his thesis that he undertook some years ago bears that out. So there's a really exciting cross section of opportunities here. There are also some the company sold some other assets it had in the region, Avoca, Mornbull, and Timor to Fosterville South. 500,000 came into the accounts, and there are royalty agreements in place there. One Australian dollar for every ounce measured, inferred, or indicated to a $1 million a maximum. And there is also an arrangement with SLM Gold in Argentina. ECR sold an asset there last year. There's a net smelter royalty there of up to 2%, and that will go to a maximum of 2.7 million. Finally, there's an asset in the Philippines, the Denali epithermal gold project, an inferred gold resource there of 1.2 million tons, average of 1.5 grams per ton, and ECR currently has a 25% interest in that asset too. So great spread of assets at various stages, but clearly the focus is on Bayliston and Creswick, and literally, we are waiting for further news on Bayliston or further assay results from Bayliston, and of course the results of the drilling from Creswick, which will be due in the coming months. So, at this level, I think it's a really exciting opportunity on offer.
And really, obviously, you mentioned the other two projects there, Argentina and the Philippines. There, been with the company for a long time. Really, the focus, it's got to be Australia, hasn't it? That's the flagship. What do you think, Alan? In your opinion, what's the catalyst for value creation here? I mean, there was talk, wasn't there, about interested parties, wasn't there? Was it Creswick as well? I don't know. Anything's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. But there are so many factors put on the table. We've had joint venture interest in Creswick, and Craig. I think what Craig's approach to these developments is that he's got in his mind a valuation on Creswick, and if those joint venture offers meet that, then he'll go with it. Or he'll keep on drilling and developing the asset until the valuation he has in his mind is borne out. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So we're seeing this further work undertaken on Creswick. Once we have clear data there, and if the drilling that's being undertaken there supports and confirms what was discovered in 2019, then I think we've got a very exciting find. And as we've seen with the Havarian asset owned by Greatland Gold, the big mining companies or the big mining operators like Newcrest and Newmont and others, Kirkland Gold, they are looking for junior miners to prove and develop assets like this, to bring them out of exploration into proven assets, and the producers can then move in and develop to the next stage. So that's the situation with Creswick, but of course in Bayliston and HR3 and all of the assets there, we have the issue with Kirkland Gold. Their production for Q1 is down to last year. They are spreading further afield. They've bought more land during the quarter, so Kirkland Gold are looking to broaden the asset base that they have for the operation there. And of course, if Craig and the team can prove up the HR3 assets, the anomaly that's starting to come into focus at HR3, then it's going to be hugely exciting, because it's just down the road in relative terms from the Kirkland, from the Fosterville mine. So that could well be a discussion that will take place once they have more data.
Okay. And immediate short-term things to look out for then, drilling results, is that right?
Yeah, further assay results from HR3 is supporting the geo targeting, and of course news from Creswick. So it is going to come at us from all angles. There's an awful lot going on, and don't forget, as I said right at the start, this company's got nearly £6 million in the bank, so it's fully funded. fully funded for all its exploration activities for the foreseeable future, well, all the way through to proving up the asset. So, whilst I know a lot of retail investors were miffed in the short term, I actually think it was a shrewd move to get the money in, because they're now funded. They don't need to worry about that anymore. They're fully funded, and if they have to ramp up their activities because opportunities present themselves, then they can do that.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. Okay, let's move on to Kavango then, and some news just this morning.
Some news this morning, indeed. So, Kavango Resources are operators operating in Southern Africa, in Botswana. So the company currently, just bring the data up. So currently, the share price has risen sharply this morning on the back of the news, which of course you expect. 4.35p gives it a market cap of 15.3 million, which is still very little when set against the size of the assets that they own in Botswana. So we've seen a year high of 4.7p. I think that was actually hit today, and a low of just under 0.1p. So I think investors are starting to realise that Kavango is a sleeping giant, which it most certainly is. So firstly, three key projects. We have the Disaucam project and the Kalahari Copperbelt project, which is the news today is all about. Both of those are joint ventures with, of course, Power Metal Resources, and it's the subject of a joint venture company, Kenya Resources, that will be IPO'd separately later on this year, and that's what's really lighting things up at the moment, because if you with assets like this, certainly a company like Power Metal that has so many different assets, sometimes it's hard to see the wood for the trees and hard to get a valuation. Whereas if a project is spun out in this way, so the focus is purely on the Kalahari Copperbelt, then it's very easy and clear for investors to understand the value proposition. So I'm just going to retrace some steps a bit before we talk about the Kalahari Copperbelt developments today. I want to talk about the Kalahari Suture Zone, where a few days ago we had news of an aeromag survey that was undertaken in the region. Now this is a huge area. The Kalahari Suture Zone, it's some 8,500 square kilometers, and consists of multiple prospecting licenses in a zone that's prospective for copper, nickel, and platinum group metals. Throughout the work they've done on the KSZ, Kavango have constantly referred to the model that has been emerging as they developed and worked with the data. The model that's emerging is very similar in structure to the Norilsk mine in Siberia, which produces 20% of the world's nickel, 10% of the world's cobalt, 3% of the world's copper, and 60% of the world's palladium, and 20% of the world's platinum. So it's a vast, huge mine by any standards. So I said all the work that Kavango have undertaken has led to a point where they now have a very detailed 3D model, which is built with the assistance of a company called Myra Geoscience, to identify the trap zones. So when these zones are formed, heavy metal sulfides bubble up through the earth and are trapped within fissures in the rock. So these sulfides cool, and then once cooled, they then lead to the metals that of course are being sought, and also show up on the aeromagnetic surveys that are undertaken. So the latest news on that, in the Hokunsi region, in the KSZ, this was on April 20th, identified a further large conductive body, which was in line again with the 3D model that had been produced. And with that work, the company announced a share-based partnership with a company called Spectra Geophysics, who have undertaken all the work on the KSZ. So Spectral Geophysics are being paid in shares rather than cash, which is great to see, because when an experienced geo team like that are prepared to take shares rather than cash, it indicates that there's something pretty big underground. So that's the KSZ. With you, more news on that upcoming very shortly. Just a word on the management. Of course, the chief exec is Michael Foster. Michael is very well respected, a lot of experience in the industry, formerly worked for De Beers, Reunion Mining, Zincox, Casa, Copperbelt, and others. And then we have, of course, the founders of Kavango, which are Mike Moles, formerly Delta Gold, Reunion, and Lonmin, and Hilary Gumbo, also the co-founder and the man on the ground for the team in Botswana. Secondly, we have the Ditau Camp project. So, of course, this is where the 50-50 joint venture works with Power Metal. Southern Botswana, this is a series they've identified in this region, base metal deposits, but in addition, what are referred to as magnetic ring structures, where they've identified 10 structures. And these are prospective for carbonatites, including rare earth metals, including neodymium and praseodymium. And we spoke, of course, about alternate rare earths last week. And it's these sort of metals that are going to be used to power wind turbines, the EV industry, battery technology, and so on. This was last drilled in the 70s by Falcon Ridge Mining, and it was sampled. It was sampled in detail back then, but of course the significance of these metals wasn't so prevalent then as of course it is today. Michael Foster said last year in September there was mounting evidence that the Ditau project is at the center of a previously unrecognized alkaline magmatic complex. So again, there's been progress with the Ditau camp this year, and we are due further news on that. Which brings us up to date. So the third project, of course, is the Kalahari Copper Belt project, which is a mineral belt on the Ganzi Ridge in western Botswana. And sedimentary copper deposits have been discovered here on numerous occasions previously, very close to the surface. So there's a joint venture, firstly, with LVR GeoExplorers on 2 licenses, which have been developed throughout the year, and then of course with Power Metal, and this is of course the separate joint venture company Kenya Resources. The big news today is that 7 highly conductive targets were identified at the Kalahari Copper Belt, which align almost that they're almost identical with the field work conducted by Kavango and the regional exploration team seeking major copper and silver deposits within the region. So these 7, they've discovered 7 highly conductive anomalies, which are a potential drill targets. 2 of which I think have really high potential. The first one is a target which they've named Acacia. And it's a 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer square conductor on the northern boundary of the license, which lies within a geological anomaly known as a fold nose. So when the land folds over, it creates traps for metals and other assets. And they've identified 4 pods, at least 4 pods of high conductivity there. But not only that, the soil sampling that's been undertaken over literally in the land above each of these anomalies has shown elevated levels of copper and zinc. And historically, when discoveries have been made in this region, it's following the format. So the underground anomaly is identified and it's preceded by discovery of metal in the soils above that. So hugely exciting for the team. Similar, a 2 kilometer wide asset called Marula has also indicated an underground shear, and again the soil geochemistry across this target also indicates highly elevated levels of copper and zinc across the entire anomaly, and we have this to a lesser degree across the other the other 5 targets in the region. And this, of course, is a massive step forward. It's a firm indication, and a firm indication that there are assets down there which are worth funding and developing into full-blown mines. And of course, that will be the next step. Of course, when Canyon Resources comes to market, it may well raise some of the money to do that in its own right. We don't know what the plans are yet, but nonetheless, I'm not surprised the share price has popped up today. But even so, a find of this size and nature, particularly given the shortage or the perceived shortage in copper supply that's going to become ever more prevalent throughout this year, it just provides a huge opportunity, I think, for the team to fast track this and get it and get something out of the ground as soon as possible. So Michael Foster's comments on that obviously very positive. And he said that they were particularly encouraged by the elevated copper and zinc readings, which correlate with the conductors. And the next steps, of course, they have an environmental management plan submitted to the local government, and they obviously the speed of this being processed and the speed of this being resolved will determine the next steps. But watch this space. Really exciting.
Yeah, and it is exciting, isn't it? And particularly I think it's a no-brainer really that copper is going to do very well. What with the government stimulus is going on, of course, it always finds its way to infrastructure spending. And copper, just looking at my screen, nearly 33% year to date. So yeah, performing pretty well, really. And so the latest news, Alan, just to confirm, this is all from the that loop survey they were doing. Is that right? The electromagnetic loop survey. Then they've identified like really sort of juicy targets to then go and explore more.
Exactly that. Yeah. So that's the great thing with modern mining techniques. So you've got the loop surveys, then you've got 3D modeling, which you can undertake, and put the assets into a model that you can understand, which from which you can plan the steps to. So if you've got a series of assets, how do you turn those into one producing mine? What are the steps you need to take? Infrastructural considerations, getting the stuff out of the ground, getting it to market, all of those. So those are the next steps once it's proven, and obviously once these conductors are drilled and we have detailed samples from those conductive assets, then I think once that's proven, then of course, and that will take place once the environmental plan has been approved. Then it's all systems go. So that's going to be the news that investors will be looking out for in the next few months.
Yeah, good, excellent. And I remember last time the 3D modelling from Kavango was fantastic. So if they produce a similar kind of stuff this time around, then we can look forward to some really nice looking some models to play around with and talk to the geo about. It would be very, as we did last time, it was really interesting.
It is, and that's the great thing with these with 3D models. You can be, you don't need to have any understanding of mining, but the 3D model explains perfectly. So an aeromag survey quite simply picks up conductive bodies in the ground, and of course, as if you're in the air, you can look down at the ground structure and you'll see things from the air that you won't see on the ground. That's why a lot of these old people seeking ancient camps or ancient burial mounds. These can be seen from the air, but not necessarily from the ground. Mining exploration works in a similar way. So the aircraft is flown over the area, picks up the anomalies, and then maps out those anomalies. And of course, it can get an idea of the depth of the anomalies. So when you put that into a 3D model, such as the one that's on on the Kavango website for the KSZ, the Kalahari Super Zone, you can then get a true picture of the potential size of the asset and what it contains. And, if you can put an estimate together to what it contains, you get the JORC estimate established, then you've got an idea of what's on the ground. Then it's how much funding do we need to get that stuff out of the ground? What are the infrastructure costs? All of those considerations come into play, and you then move from a mining exploration company to a company that's developing an asset into production.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Alan, again for your time. ECR Minerals there and Kavango Resources. Thank you very much for giving us your take on it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.